You know that story we all hear about genius? That it's this flash of lightning.
Yeah, that some people are just born with it.
Exactly. We see someone like Mozart composing at 6, and we just assume, okay, he was touched by some divine hand. The hard work is almost an afterthought.
Well, it's a nice story, but the deep dive we're taking today shows something really different. It's based on a ton of research, cognitive science, creativity studies, biographies of masters like Da Vinci, Franklin, Einstein.
And what does it say?
It says mastery isn't a miracle at all. It's a process, a quantifiable, predictable, and disciplined process.
Okay, disciplined. I want to pause on that word. Does that just mean, work harder? Or is there more to it?
Oh, it's way more strategic than that. It's about a series of deep psychological transformations. We're essentially looking at the architecture of expertise, and it's organized into these 3 distinct phases.
So our mission for you today is to basically lay out that map, the steps you'd need to take to go from just being competent to, well, true masterly intuition.
That's the goal.
All right, let's jump in. Phase 1, connecting to what the sources called the inner calling, or the life's task.
Right. And it's amazing how consistently masters across time talk about this. I mean, you have Socrates, Napoleon, Leonardo da Vinci. They all describe this initial drive as a kind of internal hidden force.
A star or a demon, I think, were some of the words used.
Exactly. It sounds a bit mystical, doesn't it?
It does. So if we strip that mystical language away, what are we actually talking about psychologically?
It's that unique pull of your own individuality. It's a draw towards activities that just perfectly suit who you are, your brain, your emotions. It feels like destiny, but it's not assigned to you. It's the only thing that makes you feel fully alive.
And the first strategy is simply to return to your origins, the primal inclination strategy.
Yeah, which is beautiful because that inclination, it almost always shows up really early in childhood.
Look, Albert Einstein. His entire career, his obsession with invisible forces, the very core of relativity, it started when he was 5 years old with a compass.
A simple compass, yeah.
He was just mesmerized by it. Why did that needle always point north? He had to understand that invisible force. It wasn't just, a kid's curiosity. It was this deep, visceral reaction that set the course for his entire life.
And you see the same thing with the dancer Martha Graham. She felt that words were just inadequate. And then she saw a dance performance and had this moment of recognition.
That was it.
That was it. Her vocation was in that visceral, expressive movement. The key insight here is that you don't need to invent a path. You just have to dig. You have to find that original attraction that got buried under school or parents or career pressures.
So why do so many of us lose that? Why do we abandon it?
That brings us to the false path. We end up choosing careers for all the wrong reasons. Money, fame, what our parents want for us.
And the result is?
Emptiness. You feel weaker because you're literally working against your own nature. All your potential power is tied to reconnecting with that inner calling.
The classic example of this have to be Mozart. I mean, he was this incredible prodigy, but early on, he was mostly performing to please his father, Leopold.
For sure. He was chasing the attention and the validation he got in, provincial Salzburg. It was a conventional path, and ironically, it was stifling his real unique voice.
Which is why his rebellion was so critical.
Absolutely. His true creative explosion, the depth and the fire in his later work, it only happened after he made that fateful decision to stay in Vienna in 1781.
Yeah.
It was a direct rebellion against the father figure who was, in a way, blocking his path.
And for anyone listening who feels like, okay, I took that false path, it's too late for me, there's the life or death strategy.
Yes, Buckminster Fuller's story is so powerful here. I mean, can you imagine? You're by Lake Michigan, your career has failed, you're in debt, and you're thinking about ending it all.
Wow.
And in that moment, he had this realization. He decided he was going to live, but only for his intermission. He realized that force was always there, just waiting to be engaged. That intensity proves you can start this process at any time, but you have to commit with that level of seriousness.
That seriousness leads us right into phase 2, the apprenticeship. If phase 1 is finding your target, phase 2 is building the muscle to get there. Usually this is around ages 18 to 25.
And the goal here is not money. It's not a title. It's about the transformation of your mind and character. You have to go from being impatient and scattered to disciplined and focused. It's all about skill acquisition.
This is so important because, our education system is mostly about what the sources call passive absorption.
Right, reading books, taking tests.
And then you get thrown into the work world and you realize you're completely naive about how things actually work, the politics, the practicalities.
That's the post-school trap.
Huh.
Young people often prioritize getting attention over actually learning the craft. It's a huge mistake. The great masters always valued learning over money.
Benjamin Franklin is the perfect case study. He could have joined his father's candle-making business, which was safe and lucrative.
Very safe.
Instead, he chose to apprentice in his brother's printing shop, which was notoriously volatile. But he saw the hidden value, didn't he?
He absolutely did. He knew he'd learn the entire business top to bottom. And by proofreading everything, he was essentially giving himself a master class in writing and rhetoric. He was optimizing for learning, not for immediate cash.
This connects to the Darwinian strategy, finding the perfect niche. Charles Darwin himself was, by all accounts, a pretty mediocre student in a traditional sense.
He struggled with abstract thought. Schooling just didn't fit how his mind worked. But he had this one overwhelming passion.
Collecting things, biological specimens.
Exactly. And that passion got him onto the HMS Beagle. He wasn't following some predefined career path. He just embraced this enormous chaotic task of observing and collecting everything he could. He found an uncrowded niche that perfectly suited his unique cognitive strengths.
And we see that again with the neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran. He was fascinated by anomalies, things that didn't fit, like the seashell, the xenophoric.
Right, an organism that decorates its own shell. He took that specific interest and applied it to visual neuroscience, a field that was, at the time, pretty specialized. It gave him the freedom to roam and ask questions nobody else was asking.
This apprenticeship phase also requires, well, a dose of hard reality. The sources are pretty clear that our culture has become too soft. We're afraid to give stern, realistic criticism.
We think we're protecting people's self-esteem.
But it's actually damaging, isn't it?
It is. You need those challenges. You need harsh feedback sometimes to see your own weaknesses and build discipline. If everything is just affirming and positive, you never learn. The great division in the future will be between people who can discipline their minds to handle complexity and those who just get overwhelmed by distraction.
Okay, so let's say you've done that. You've put in the 10,000 hours, you've found your niche. Why do so many brilliant people still fail at this point?
Because they haven't mastered phase 3, acquiring social intelligence.
This is huge. The biggest obstacle to mastery isn't a lack of skill. It's the emotional drain of dealing with other people's envy, resistance, and manipulations.
We all suffer from what's called the naive perspective. We project our own good intentions onto others, and it makes us blind to their real agendas.
Franklin learned this the hard way, didn't he?
Oh, repeatedly. First, he told his brother he wrote the popular do-good letters, and his brother's envy just poisoned their relationship. Then he got completely fooled by Governor Keith's empty promises that left him broke in London.
So what was his takeaway?
He realized he was rational about his work, but emotional and naive when it came to people. He had to become a student of human nature, just as detached and strategic as he was with mechanics.
And this leads to the Keimer maneuver.
Exactly. He goes back to work for his old boss, Keimer, who was insecure and prickly. But this time, Franklin is watching him like a chess player. He correctly predicts that Keimer is just using him to train the other staff and plans to fire him.
So instead of getting angry or confronting him,
he uses it. He quietly builds his own customer connections, learns new skills on the side, and just waits. He's thinking inside Keimer's mind. And when the moment is right, he leaves without a big drama and starts his own, much better shop. He mastered the social game.
it's all about letting your work speak for you. We see the tragic opposite of this with Ignaz Semmelweis versus William Harvey.
Semmelweis made one of the most important discoveries in medical history, that doctors were giving patients childbed fever from their dirty hands.
A huge breakthrough.
Monumental. But he was so arrogant and argumentative about it, he alienated everyone, got himself fired, and his discovery was ignored for decades. His lack of social skill undermined his own genius.
Then you have William Harvey, who discovered the circulation of the blood, a theory that was just as radical.
But Harvey was clever. He waited years to publish. He patiently gathered overwhelming evidence, he slowly won over his most important colleagues, and he secured his own position before he made his big move. He conquered the envy before it had a chance to attack him.
Which is why that final social strategy is so important. Suffer fools gladly.
Yes, Goethe at the court of Weimar. He found all the gossip and triviality absolutely unbearable. His solution: talk less. Let other people talk endlessly about themselves.
And that let him, what, see them more clearly.
It let him detach. He learned their characters without getting tangled in their emotional games. It conserved his mental energy for the real work. That's the entire point of social intelligence.
Okay, that discipline finally brings us to the last stage, phase 4, awakening the dimensional mind, the creative active phase.
This is the second great transformation. Your mind stops thinking in a straight line. It starts seeing systems, interconnections, multiple aspects of reality all at once. It becomes fluid.
And this is where true masterly intuition comes from.
Yeah.
But we need to be clear, this isn't magic.
No, not at all. The sources define intuition as a sudden and immediate seizing of what is real. It's what happens when you fuse all that deep knowledge with instinctive speed.
Like the chess master Bobby Fischer. After years of study, he doesn't see individual pieces anymore.
He sees fields of force. He sees entire sequences of moves at a speed that's too fast for conscious thought. It's like an animal's instinct, but it's built on a foundation of deep, rational knowledge.
This is also about what's called mechanical intelligence. The contrast between the Wright brothers and their competitor, Samuel Langley, is perfect.
Langley had everything: government grants, a powerful engine, a team of specialists, and his plane just kept crashing. He had no feel for it.
Whereas the Wright brothers came from building bicycles. They did everything themselves. Design, build, fly.
They optimized for the learning curve, small-scale repetition, a relentless focus on control, not power. They won because they had the highest number of test flights and developed a deep, intuitive, tactile feel for their machine.
And the engine for all of this is the creative current. It's a cycle between speculation having ideas and observation testing those ideas against reality.
You have to do both. A lot of people get stuck. They either speculate wildly with no proof, or they just accumulate mountains of data but are too afraid to form a bold hypothesis. True mastery is constantly moving between the two.
Which means you have to actively seek out anomalies.
Right. Just like Ramachandran and that weird shell, the things that don't fit the current paradigm, those are gold. They show you the flaws in everyone else's thinking and open up totally new ways of seeing the world.
So to recap this whole journey for everyone listening, it starts with finding that unique primal inclination in phase 1. Then you go through the character transforming apprenticeship in phase 2. You master social intelligence in phase 3.
And then finally, you unleash the dimensional, intuitive power of the creative active phase.
So the biggest takeaway here is to just completely reject the idea of genius as some kind of miracle.
Absolutely. The activity of a genius is, structurally, no different from the activity of a really efficient inventor or a master craftsman.
It requires the seriousness of the efficient workman. You have to focus on perfecting the small secondary things, the foundational skills, the little social moves, the subtle observations, and you let time and that process build the great whole.
True genius isn't a gift. It's relentlessly combined, observed, and practiced activity. And so the real challenge for you is to think about this. The only path to becoming a genius is this process of continually forming yourself around your chosen work. What is one small secondary detail in your own life that you can start perfecting today?